nerds, what's up? So today we just really need to talk about the book Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. As an overview, I absolutely fell in love with the first 3/4 of this book, like me Googling special editions, like thinking this is gonna be my favorite book of the year, and then the last fourth of the book happened. So today we're gonna talk about why I was so disappointed with the ending of this book, and also why I fell so in love with the beginning of this book. And as a reminder, this will be a full spoiler discussion, as I can't really talk about what I didn't like about the book without fully spoiling it. So I'll see you after the jump. So let's start with the good, because that's where I always like to start. I just fell in love with Taylor's writing style. It was so lyrical and beautiful, and the idea that she wrote this as an ode to fantasy readers is just so delicious, because it's like Laszlo, our main character, is all of us. He's a dreamer who falls in love and finds value in fairy tales and fantasy stories when no one else can, which I think sometimes that's how we feel. And like I said, her writing, you guys, I am not a quote person at all, but there were several times I was blown away by some of the stuff she wrote in there. Two of my favorites being when she said, "The library knows its own mind. When it steals a boy, we let it keep him." And the other one, when she said, "When a dream comes true, but not for the dreamer." In fact, I really just loved all her little God quotes that she had at the beginning of the different sections. I just thought they were so unique and original, and I honestly could have read a whole book just talking about those. And just the entire idea of stealing a dream. I loved that quote, and I absolutely loved that plot line. The conflict between Laszlo and Thyone was incredible. I have never felt so gut punched as when you find out that Thyone literally is trying to steal Laszlo's life. He pretends he's the one that has been interested in Weep for that long. I felt that. And when a book can make me feel so much anger at another character, that means something to me. And I also even just the creative idea of a name of a city being stolen from people's minds. It's just so unique and original. The world building in this novel, I really enjoyed it. It was so whimsical and unique at the same time. I also kept thinking about how this is kind of that amazing YA that walks the line of being adult fiction simply because it doesn't really talk down to its readers, and although it's perfectly clean, it has a lot of ideas that can be appealing to young adults and adults alike, which I think is a really awesome line. Since I don't read a lot of YA these days, that's the kind of YA that I'm going to enjoy more. It was good, it was great, nay, it was amazing, until we got to the last quarter. Now, I know a lot of you predicted I wasn't going to like the romance in this novel, and fine, I didn't, but that wasn't enough for me to be so disappointed in it. This was a YA, and from the minute our female protagonist shows up, I absolutely knew there was going to be a romance. It was so obvious, and it was the typical cheesy YA romance. And did I roll my eyes a lot? Yes, but I predicted it. I knew it was coming. It wasn't something that was going to really disappoint me, and I was willing to overlook that for how much I loved everything else. The thing I cannot forgive is Laszlo being Godspawn. When that happened, so much that I loved about this beautiful book was just broken for me. Because Laszlo being absolutely average and having to fight so hard for every second of his dream was what made the book so interesting and beautiful. Laszlo finding beauty in the story of Weep because he was a dreamer and not because it was genetic was what made the story so great and made us as fantasy readers so able to connect to him. It was an insert for us fantasy readers, the fantasy readers who wish that we could be so invested in our fantasy worlds that they would be true, and it was poignant. But with him being Godspawn the entire time, all of a sudden it was so it was just he was genetically inclined to love Weep, that he was really a special boy all along, and he didn't really necessarily make things happen for himself because he was a dreamer, but rather because genetically he had powers and was inclined to be able to solve the problems. There was something more interesting too about even with his relationship with the Muse of Nightmares, because she was special and he wasn't, and how that made it more interesting. All of a sudden the ending just felt so generic to me. It just felt I was reading one book this entire time, and then the ending is oh, his girlfriend dies, and now the evil Godspawn is keeping her ghost captive, and now they have to deal with that. He has to go save his girlfriend, but he has to be careful and do exactly what she says or she'll release the ghost. Yawn, okay. It just didn't feel like the same book I was promised in the first 3/4 of this. It became so generic in the end, this generic YA fantasy that I just honestly have no interest in reading any more about. I realize this is probably an unpopular opinion, I recently did a live about this book with Leanna from Leanna's Library, and you could go watch that if you want to see some of what we said. She agreed with me on this, and I wasn't going to read Muse of Nightmares, honestly. I was so disappointed by the ending of this, but Leanna, who felt the same way I did, said she loved Muse of Nightmares and that it's still worth reading. So I probably will actually read it. I just need some time. I need some time to get over the disappointment I feel of feeling so swept away for 3/4 of a novel to be so let down by the ending. I'm sad. So I'm obviously still happy I read this book. Like, the first 3/4 of it was worth it. It was still beautiful writing, and I'd probably still recommend this to other people. Like, it was a good enough book. I just think the ending makes it just not quite going to be able to be one of my top 5 books of the year because it just didn't follow through with me. I would love to know what you thought about Strange the Dreamer. Did you feel disappointed by Laszlo being Godspawn, or did you love it? Did you like that it was extra magic? How did you feel about the ending and the Muse of Nightmares? Sorry, her name is just out of my head right now. And how she's being held captive. Do you find that interesting, or did you find it kind of generic like I did? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading as well as other nerdy rants, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.